People of Reddit, what's your favorite? A man walks into a bar joke. A man with authority walks into a bar. He orders everyone around. A drunk guy walks into a bar and sees a sign that reads "Win $500" hanging on the wall. He asks the bartender, "How do I win $500? The bartender says, "See that bouncer over there?" The drunk guy turns to look and sees the biggest, scariest looking beast of a man standing next to the door. "Yeah," he says. The bartender says, "You have to go over there and knock him out with one punch. Then I win $500? The drunk guy asks. "Not quite," says the bartender. "You see that other door over there? Outside that door is a mean, hungry rabid Rottweiler with an abscessed tooth. You have to go out there and pull that tooth out. Then I win $500? The drunk guy asks. "Not quite," says the bartender. "After that, you have to go up those stairs and 3 doors down on the left. Inside that room is an 89-year-old lady who hasn't gotten laid in 50 years. It's up to you to show her a good time. Then I get the $500? The guy asks. "Yep," says the bartender. The guy ponders this challenge for a moment, then gets up, stumbles over to the bouncer. He balls up his fist and, incredibly, knocks the huge man out with one hit. He then stumbles to the door and goes outside to where the dog is being kept. Growls and snarls mix chaotically with yelling and screaming until the door finally opens and the drunk guy staggers back into the bar. His clothes are tattered and dirty, his hair is matted with sweat and blood, his face and arms are scratched and bleeding. He looks up at the bartender and says, "Alright, now where's that lady who needs a tooth pulled?" A man walks into a bar, orders a drink, downs it really quickly, orders another, downs it one too. The bartender says, "Hey, buddy, are you okay?" The man says, "No, honestly, I'm not. I wanted to surprise my wife, and I caught her in bed with another man." The bartender says, "Oh, man, that's awful. What are you going to do?" The man, "I'm gonna drink myself to death. I just want to die." Bartender, "That's not what I'd do. If I caught another man with my wife, I'd kill the bastard." The man, "Hey, that's it. Thanks." The man leaves and comes back an hour later. The bartender asks, "So, did you do it? Did you kill a guy?" The man, big smile on his face, says, "No, I fucked your wife." Another one. A grizzled old sea captain walks into a bar. He has a peg leg, an eye patch, and a hook hand. The captain sits down and orders a drink. The bartender serves it and asks the captain a question. "If you don't mind, how did you get that peg leg?" "I were chasing the white whale, laddie. Dangerous business." "Well, how did you get the hook hand?" "Yeah, had me a swashbuckling accident." "Wow. Well, what about the eye patch?" "A seagull pooped in me eye." "What?" asks the bartender. "How did you lose your eye from seagull poop?" "Yeah, twir me first day with the hook." To conspiracy theorists walk into a bar. "You can't tell me that was just a coincidence, man." To conspiracy theorists die and go to heaven. Saint Peter tells them they'll each get to ask God one question. The first one steps forward and asks God, who was really behind 9/11? God replies to him, 9/11 was perpetrated by a group of individuals who had no respect for human life in a misguided attempt at waging war on the United States. The first conspiracy theorist looks at the other one and says, "Shit, this goes up higher than I thought." An old blind cowboy wanders into an all-girl biker bar by mistake. He finds his way to a bar stool and orders a shot of Jack Daniels. After sitting there for a while, he yells to the bartender, "Hey, you wanna hear a blonde joke?" The bar immediately falls absolutely silent. In a very deep husky voice, the woman next to him says, "Before you tell that joke, cowboy, I think it is only fair, given that you are blind, that you should know 5 things. The bartender is a blonde girl with a baseball bat. The bouncer is a blonde girl with a billy club. I'm a 6 foot tall, 175 pound blonde woman with a black belt in karate. The woman sitting next to me is blonde and a professional weightlifter. The lady to your right is blonde and a professional wrestler. Now, think about it seriously, cowboy. Do you still wanna tell that blonde joke?" The blind cowboy thinks for a second, shakes his head and mutters, "No, not if I'm gonna have to explain it 5 times." A man walks into a bar and orders a whiskey. When the barman serves it up, he takes it out to the bench in front of the bar to drink it. As he's enjoying his drink, a nun walks by and glares at him sourly. "How can you pollute your soul with the devil's drink like that?" she asks. The man shrugs. "It's not the devil, it's just whiskey. But it's sinful and wicked." "How do you know it's so bad, then? Have you ever tasted whiskey?" "Of course not. My sisters and Mother Superior told me how evil drink is." "But how do they know? Have they ever had a drink?" They go back and forth like this for a while, before at last, the nun relents. "Well, I suppose that, if I were to try a sip of whiskey, I would better understand how it corrupts the soul. But it wouldn't do for any of my sisters to come by here and see me drinking. Could you order me one in a teacup?" The man agrees this is fair, and walks inside to the barman. "2 whiskeys, but put one in a teacup, please." The barman slams his hand down on the bar and shouts, "Is that damn nun here again?" A blind man walks into a bar, then a table, then a chair, and then stumbled to his toolbox, where he picked up his hammer and saw. When little Timmy took the bet one fair and fateful day, he thought with joy of shrinking debt, and what his friends would say. He cast aside the door and chain. He stepped beyond the room, and there he saw the hulking mane, the claws inside the gloom. He paused to see the paws, the size, the shape, the strength, the might, the pair of evil, watching eyes that shone from out the night. He didn't fret. He didn't frown. He reached below with pride, and Timmy pulled his zipper down, and Timmy fucking died. A priest, a Baptist and a rabbi walk into a bar and start getting sloshed. They decide that they need to test their faith to see which one is the best. They decide the ultimate challenge is to see if they can convert a bear. So the next day they all go out into the wood to try and meet up again at the bar that night. The priest comes in with a broken arm and scratches all over his body and smilingly says, "I had to run around the bear and read him the entire Bible, but he saw the light, and he was converted." The Baptist is on crutches with 2 broken legs and a broken arm and his head all bandaged. He says, "I had to wrestle that bear to the ground and baptize him in the stream, but he saw the light, and he was converted. Hallelujah." Then the rabbi gets wheeled in a full body cast. He says, "Yeah, I know. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have started with circumcision." A man walks into a bar with a bag and orders a drink. After a while, the bartender asks him what is in the bag. The man says nothing. "Don't worry about it." The night continues, and the bartender keeps asking, but the man keeps giving him the same answer. Towards the end of the night, the bartender offers the man a free beer if the man shows him what is in the bag. The man agrees. He reaches into the bag and pulls out a tiny piano and a tiny man that sits down and starts playing the piano. The bartender says, "Wow, that's amazing. Where did you find that guy?" The man looks up and says, "I have this magic lamp that grants me wishes, but the stupid thing is broken." The man then hands the bartender the lamp and says, "You can try it if you want." The bartender happily grabs the lamp and wishes for $1,000,000 and the room is suddenly filled with $1,000,000. "This thing is definitely broken," says the bartender. The man replies, "Tell me about it. Do you really think I wished for a 12-inch pianist?" Edit. My brother would like everyone to know that he also tells this joke. Imagine the absolute horror of being 12 inches tall, then being surrounded by $1,000,000. A cowboy rode into town and stopped at a saloon for a drink. Unfortunately, the locals always had a habit of picking on strangers, which he was. When he finished his drink, he found his horse had been stolen. He went back into the bar, handily flipped his gun into the air, caught it above his head without even looking, and fired a shot into the ceiling. "Which one of you sidewinders stole my horse?" he yelled with surprising forcefulness. No one answered. "Alright, I'm gonna have another beer, and if my horse ain't back outside by the time I finish, I'm gonna do what I done in Texas. And I don't like to have to do what I done in Texas." Some of the locals shifted restlessly. The man, true to his word, had another beer, walked outside, and his horse has been returned to the post. He saddled up and started to ride out of town. The bartender wandered out of the bar and asked, "Say partner, before you go, what happened in Texas?" The cowboy turned back and said, "I had to walk home." A ghost walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve spirits." Every time I hear this joke I get unreasonably upset at a bar that doesn't serve spirits. What kind of fucking bar doesn't serve spirits? I imagine it'd be a pretty dead place. A dung beetle walks into a bar and asks, "Is this stool taken? What a shitty bar." A guy walks into a bar and sees a sign that reads, "Cheese sandwich, $2.50. Chicken sandwich, $3.50. Hand job, $10. He checks his wallet and says to the sexy bartender, "Are you the one who gives the hand jobs?" He asks. "Yes," she purrs. "I am." "Well, wash your freaking hands," says the man. "I want a cheese sandwich." Give man a duck and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to duck and he'll never walk into a bar. Give man a fish and he will eat for a day. Teach a man to fish and he will be swimming upstream during mating season only to die once reproduction is finished. A polar bear walks into a bar and says to the bartender, "I'll have a Janad." Tonic. The bartender asks why the big pause, and the polar bear replies, "I don't know, I've always had them." An 80-year-old blind man walks into a pub and sits at the bar. He orders a pint and tells the landlord, "I've been blind for 50 years lad. My hearing's perfectly attuned. I bet I can tell you what's happening in any room in this pub." "Oh really?" says the landlord. "Go ahead then." The old man cups a hand round his ear, tilts his head to the ceiling and listens. "In your bathroom, upstairs, the one at the end of the corridor, a tap's been left on." Skeptical, the landlord sends his nephew upstairs to check. His nephew returns and confirms the findings. "Cold bean luck," says the landlord. "Go on, try again." The old man cups his ear, tilts his head to the floor and listens. "In your cellar," he says. "I can hear scurrying. You have a rat infestation." "You're talking rubbish," says the landlord and sends his nephew to check. He returns and the old man is right again. Now intrigued, the landlord urges him to try again. He cups a hand round his ear and listens to somewhere behind the bar. "Ah, in the storeroom down that corridor," he says. "Someone's having it in there right now." The nephew goes and checks the storeroom, and what do ya know? He finds two of the bar staff shagging away in there. "Bloody hell, old man, you truly are incredible," says the landlord. "What else can you hear?" The old geezer hushes the landlord, places his head on the bar, and listens for a while. He lifts his head off the bar and says, "Yep, your beer pump is definitely out of action." The landlord checks the pump. "Ha, you're wrong, old man. It's working perfectly." "Well then, where's my fucking pint?" A guy walks into a bar and starts a drunken conversation with one of the patrons. "Hey, what are you drinking?" the patron asks. "Magic beer," says the guy. After arguing about it for a few minutes, the guy says, "I'll prove it to you." They go outside and walk to a nearby cliff. The guy chugs his magic beer, then jumps off. Miraculously he floats back up and settles down next to the stunned patron. The patron runs back to the bar and says to the bartender, "I want what he's having." Pointing to the guy, the patron chugs his magic beer, runs over to the cliff, and plummets to his death. The guy walks back inside smiling and orders another beer. The bartender shakes his head and says, "You know, Superman, you can be a real asshole." A man walks into a bar. As he sits down, looks up and notices 3 pieces of meat hanging from the ceiling. He asks the bartender what's with the meat. The bartender says, "If you can jump up and slap all 3 pieces at once, you get free drinks for an hour. If you miss even one, you have to pay for everyone else's drinks for the rest of the night. Wanna give it a go?" The man takes another look at the meat, then says, "I think I'll pass. The stakes are too high."